Today marks the 13th anniversary of the original Persona 4's release, so a couple of friends and I wanted to try a challenge run together. The Velvet Room has been a staple since the first Persona game, as a place where you can fuse strong Personas, get old ones from the compendium, and in 4, duplicate skill cards. But what if we removed the Velvet Room entirely, and can only work with the Personas we find in dungeons? Can we beat Persona 4 Golden without the Velvet Room? That's right, 3 people, 3 runs, all in one video. And to top it all off, we all spun a wheel 3 times to decide our party, so I'll be using different teams as well. And these teams definitely did not influence our thoughts in the character ranking video we did last month. You know, just putting that out there. Here are the rules. The Velvet Room cannot be used outside of story purposes. That means no fusion, compendium, and skill card duplication. All party members that were not drafted cannot be used in battle. The run must be done on hard mode, since we don't think very hard changes anything besides being more tedious due to the change in experience gain. The run is considered complete once the credits roll on the true golden ending route. As always, there will be spoilers for the entire game, so keep that in mind. With that out of the way, let's begin. The prologue of Persona 4 is notoriously long, so let's skip around a bit. The game begins with our protagonist, who we all name differently, living in the countryside with our uncle Dojima and cousin Nanako. We attend Yasogami High, where we become quick friends with Yosuke, Chie, and Yukiko, and learn about the Midnight Channel, where if you look into the TV at midnight on a rainy day, you'll see your soulmate. But while doing so, we discover we have the power to go into TVs. After bodies start dropping, Yosuke hypothesizes that the people who show up on the Midnight Channel are the ones who end up dead. So we enter the TV to explore, along with a bear named Teddy. After we awaken to our persona, we run into Shadow Yosuke, who reveals the parts of Yosuke he wants to hide, and when Yosuke denies his shadow, we now have to fight it. And by fight, I mean just use Zio when you can, and call it a day. Yosuke is able to accept his shadow and receive his persona, and the group vows to bring an end to the mysterious murders in Inaba. Disaster continues to strike, as now Yukiko has ended up on the Midnight Channel, and the group rush in to go save her. Literally 2 steps in, Shadow Chie manifests, and Chie denies it, so we have to fight it too. Shadow Chie is weak to wind, and I'm the only one with Yosuke, so the fight is pretty much the same as a regular fight. Use Garu when Greenwall isn't up, and have Yosuke guard when she prepares to use Mazio. Yoshi and Mark don't have Yosuke on their team, so they had to think a little bit differently. Mark was able to find the persona Angel, which has Garu, whereas Yoshi was able to find a Garu skill card and tie it to his Izanagi. With wind skills, Shadow Chie doesn't take too long to defeat. Chie accepts her shadow and gets her persona, and now we can continue through the rest of Yukiko's castle. The enemies in the castle aren't too difficult, whether it's my full party, Yoshi's 2-man team, or even for Mark, who only has Narukami. The party members they can't use can at least serve as some nice meat shields for the stronger enemies down the line. The Avenger Knight mini-boss can be a bit of a handful, since its power charge skewers can easily one-shot any party member, but its weakness to fire makes things overall pretty painless. At last, we make it to the top of the castle and find Yukiko and her shadow. Now surely, Yukiko will accept her shadow, so we can just go home, right?
That ain't me.
Guess not. If you don't have Bufu, you can just buy ice cubes at the Shiroku store to get some guaranteed damage on Yukiko. So that was my plan to get through this fight as fast as I could. Mark and Yoshi had Valkyrie, which has Bufu, so they didn't need to do this. However, since Mark can't use his teammates, he can't all-out attack, so the fight goes pretty slowly for him, especially when Yukiko summons her prince, who can heal her if you don't scare them off fast enough. But that prince is weak to electric, so they won't be sticking around for long. With enough time, we're able to defeat the boss. Yukiko accepts her shadow, and we're able to get her to safety. In the meantime, Mark and I work on party members' social links, but Yosh took a different approach, and started working on his social stats for a future item we'll get to later. After enough time passes, we check the Midnight Channel and find someone else on there, who we believe to be Kanji Tatsumi, a notorious thug. We tried to save him early, but that goes about as well as Yosuke's day-to-day life at the start of the game. Left with no other options, the group heads into the steamy bathhouse to go save Kanji. This dungeon has a bit of a difficulty jump, the enemies are a lot stronger, and the dungeon is also very long. This is also the time where we can kick out party members we can't use, so having less meat shields to work with makes this a very rough time for Mark, who only has Yukiko, but a team of Chie and Yukiko makes the journey pretty alright for Yosh. The mini-boss here buffs its attacks in every way imaginable, and although that makes its pattern predictable, this enemy can sweep your whole team without breaking a sweat. It doesn't have a weakness either, so sacrifices had to be made. We stall until it runs out of SP and just wail on it with whatever we have left at that point. The only thing left in the way of Kanji is his shadow, but he basically says,
"You're not that guy, pal, trust me, you're not that guy."
Now we have to fight. Shadow Kanji has 2 henchmen with him to both buff and heal the main man himself, but both have weaknesses that can be exploited. But this boss is a bit of a challenge with my team. Yosuke is practically useless because he's weak to electric, so he's mainly guarding. The elements get annoying too, but I'm able to manage. Valkyrie was the main persona the 3 of us used to heal and debuff, and with the persona Oberon, we can make Mizuo a non-issue for Narukami. Mark and Yosh had Yukiko heal, while the rest of the party went to town. It takes some time, but Shadow Kanji goes down. Kanji faces himself and gains his persona, giving Yosh and I a full team to use, and Mark is gonna be struggling for a while. Now is about the time where we start to max out some social links. There's also a scene on the camping trip where Yosuke is going on about how the girls' cooking is terrible, but I mean, it can't be that bad. Does this mean the run's over? Anyways, an idol named Rise Kujikawa just moved into town and appeared on the news. The investigation team noticed the past victims were all shown on TV before they ended up in the Midnight Channel, so we tried to warn her ahead of time. But after getting distracted by a peeping Tom, Rise gets kidnapped. No, really, this all happened in like 5 minutes. I don't know how it happened. Now it's time to say Rise and enter the Marukyuu striptease. This is probably the #1 dungeon that you probably wouldn't want anyone walking in on. But it's also the first dungeon where Yoshi and I have full teams, thanks to Kanji joining the group. So we're able to steamroll through the dungeon, while Mark is, well, trying his best with Yukiko. This is also the dungeon where Yoshi's social stat raising paid off, since he was able to score high on his exams and received the paper armband from Nanako, which raises all stats by 5. The mini-boss was pretty annoying though. It loves to inflict status ailments on my team, and even though it's weak to fire, it takes almost no damage from it, and man does it hit hard. I was barely able to win, while Mark and Yosh had an easier time thanks to Yukiko. We make it to the end of the dungeon to find Rise and her shadow, and like everyone else, she denies her shadow, and the fight begins. Shadow Rise has every elemental skill, so she's pretty much guaranteed to hit someone's weakness eventually. But thankfully, this isn't a boss you have to defeat, just one you have to outlast. Once her health gets low enough, she scans the entire team and we can't hit her. The fight ends, and Teddy jumps in to rescue us, and Rise finally accepts her shadow. However, after that, Teddy's own shadow appears. Now, surely the one who warned us to, accept our shadows will just accept theirs, so we can just— oh no, they're gonna spoil the plot twist, time to fight! Shadow Teddy is a very bulky enemy, but they're also very predictable. If they mind charge, they're going to Mabufula, and if they Marakunda, they'll probably follow up with a heat wave. Narukami debuffs with Valkyrie, Yosuke heals, and Chie and Kanji attack. As for Yosh, he had Titania who blocks ice and has Mediarama, while the rest of his party did damage. Mark on the other hand still only has 2 party members, so this fight was painfully slow. Yukiko heals when she can, while Narukami attacks Teddy. It's a very scary fight too, since Yukiko is weak to ice, but we all get through it. Teddy accepts his shadow, and we all escape, and the town of Inaba is safe. Except it isn't! King Moron's body is found just hanging around, and now the group is confused as to what went wrong. After some further thinking, we learn about the supposed killer behind the cases, and now they've ended up in the Midnight Channel too. So the group heads into Void Quest to catch the killer. Even though Rise and Teddy have joined the team, this dungeon is still a challenge. Even though Rise's dungeon can be ran through pretty easily, this dungeon requires a long grind, especially since we can't use new personas. The mini-boss here summons a minion to heal it when it's not dishing out damage to the whole party. But the minion is weak to ice, so with Chie on my team as well as Valkyrie, the minion won't be able to heal the main boss. It does take some time, but eventually the boss goes down. But that boss is nothing compared to the end boss. We reach the end of the dungeon only to find the culprit and his shadow. Shadow Mitsuo says that Mitsuo is nothing, and Mitsuo of course rejects his shadow, and the fight is on. Shadow Mitsuo is easily the most annoying boss in the game. Not only can they move twice in one turn, and inflict exhaustion, their gimmick is absolutely tedious. You have to destroy the shell before you can target the main boss, and the shell has a hefty amount of HP. Once the boss is out, they can still move twice and can do basically anything. They have all magic, can get rid of buffs and debuffs, ailments, you name it. The worst part is, if you don't deal enough damage, the boss will rebuild its shell again, which it's almost guaranteed to do at least once in a fight. As for my team, Narukami would debuff, Yosuke would heal, and Chie and Kanji would do the damage. Kanji may have power charge, but the boss resists physical moves, so I'm not doing that much damage. Mark and Yosh both have Yukiko to deal magic damage, as well as cure any ailments inflicted on the team with Amrita. Mark also has Teddy do the healing while using power charge moves with his Eligor, while Yosh would use power charge on Ose. It took a lot of time and a lot of revival beads, but Shadow Mitsuo is defeated. With probably the hardest boss behind us, we continue to max out more of our party members' social links, and get to work on Marie's social link that I totally didn't forget about. We now have access to bike dates as well, so we can give our teammates some really handy skills. After everyone's favorite scene, Naoto ends up on TV, and soon after, inside the Midnight Channel, as they purposefully made themselves bait to prove that the real killer is still out there. The group heads into the secret laboratory to go save Naoto. This dungeon might be the easiest one thus far. After the hell that was Shadow Mitsuo, every enemy in here is easy to take care of, especially with Rise's help. Even the mini-boss is practically a non-issue. I have Narukami debuff its attack and defense with Pyrojack and Valkyrie, Kanji debuffs its accuracy, while Yosuke heals, and Chie does the damage. Mark has Teddy heal, while Yukiko and Narukami deal damage with magic and power charge. This is enough to get through the boss until it's at very low health. Then it'll stand by for 3 turns until it uses last resort, so I just decide to guard when that happens. After that, we reach the end of the dungeon to find Naoto and their shadow. The shadow reveals Naoto's insecurities, as well as the fact that Naoto's a girl, and Naoto denies her shadow just like the rest, and it's time to throw down. After Shadow Mitsuo, this boss is a complete joke. Its unique gimmick is that it can nullify your team's resistances, but otherwise, it's not really threatening at all. My team had Narukami focused on debuffs, Yosuke focused on healing, and Chie and Kanji focused on physical damage. With Firebreak on Yukiko, Yosh found the Persona Dis, which has Mind Charge and Agidyne, so he's able to deal tons of damage. Mark has his Yukiko do the same, while Teddy heals, and Narukami follows up with his own debuffs, and in time, this boss gets canned. Naoto accepts her shadow, and by awakening to her persona, Mark finally has a full team to work with. But there's still a killer that needs to be caught. We receive a letter in the mail that warns us not to save anyone again, and show it to the team. Not too long after, we get another letter threatening us that if we continue to save people, someone close to us will be killed. Dojima snatches the letter and locks us up at the station for our own safety, and to our shock, Nanako appears on the TV and gets kidnapped. After some quick thinking from the team, we would discover the identity of the killer, Taro Namatame. Dojima chases after Namatame, who flips his truck, escaping into the TV and leaving Dojima in critical condition. We're the only ones who can save Nanako, so we rush into heaven to get her back. This dungeon is fairly easy as well, but still requires a bit of grinding to make up for us rushing through the past dungeon. The bike skills are definitely helping out though, and our teams are getting closer to their max potential. The mini-boss isn't very unique either, it just uses mind-charged magic skills. But once we reach the top, we're greeted by Namatame and Nanako. After some talking, we get him away from Nanako, and the shadows gather around him, forming Kuni no Sagiri. The gimmick of this boss is that it can change the weather to make one element a lot stronger while making the rest a lot weaker. But that doesn't affect physical moves, so Chie and Kanji can go to town while Yosuke heals and Narukami debuffs. Later on, the boss will take control of some of your party members too, and this can be a little scary. But since Rise can revive us at this point, we're practically untouchable. Now that Yukiko has Mind Charge, Mark and Yosh have a very easy time thanks to her absurd damage output, and the boss falls. We get both Namatame and Nanako to the hospital. We can only hope for her recovery. At this point, the fog is getting worse, and it turns out that the fog from the TV world is leaking into the real one. But then, we receive a call from Adachi saying that Nanako's condition is getting worse, and unfortunately, she dies. Dojima tries to get his revenge on Namatame, but is apprehended by the police. We hear a noise in Namatame's room and rush in. Namatame's shadow appears on TV, and remarks that he'll continue trying to save people, and the group gets the idea to throw Namatame into the TV, which would kill him. Except he isn't the killer, it's actually this loser! So we chase him into the TV in Magatsu Inaba. Oh yeah, and Nanako's alive. The enemies here give great experience, so it'll act as my last grinding point. We're also able to find some great personas here, like Suiki, which has power charge. The first mini-boss is a cakewalk. but the second one drops mind-charged Megidolons like it's nothing. It's a rough fight, but now all that's left is to catch Adachi. We corner him, he gives a monologue about how unfair the world is, and now we fight. Fun fact, Adachi resists physical moves by 50%, so my main damage dealers are only half as effective. This fight still isn't very challenging though. Yosuke can stop Adachi from buffing, and his attacks don't land a dent in my team. But Adachi only serves as a damage sponge for the real threat, Ameno Sagiri. Now, although Ameno Sagiri has more skills to work with, and can move twice in one turn, it doesn't resist physical moves at all. The damage Chie and Kanji can do is legitimately absurd at this point, especially with Narukami's debuffs. Yosh had Yukiko dropping mind-charged Agidines, while Chie and Kanji used power-charged God's Hand and Torn Shot. Mark had Teddy debuff and heal, while the rest of the team did the damage. It doesn't take long for this overgrown frog machine to go down. Ameno Sagiri agrees to leave humanity alone and vanishes along with the fog. We're able to arrest Adachi and bring the murder cases to a close. But the game's still not done. In January, once we visit the Velvet Room, Marie seems to be missing, and Margaret agrees to search for her. In the meantime, we can unlock our teammates' tier 3 personas and go on a ski trip, and after some shenanigans, Margaret drags us all into the TV as we enter the Hollow Forest to find Marie. If we fail now, Marie will vanish from our memories forever. And yeah, that would be totally bad, oh boy. This dungeon has a few gimmicks, like only being able to use items found in the dungeon, and our SP being cut in half after every battle. This is a rare instance where I don't mind having a physical oriented team. We steamroll through the mini bosses and make it to Marie. She goes on about how she needs to die or else she'll turn to some fog monster, and how she doesn't want to be saved. This leads into a short fight that isn't all too interesting. We just have to outlast her until she stops fighting. We convince Marie that we can save her, so she lets the monster take control, and now we have to stop it. Kasumi no Okumi repels everything, so you either need a break skill, or need to have grabbed some breakers in the dungeon in order to hit her at all. But I don't believe physical break is a thing, and with the worst magic users possible, this is a very long fight for me. But for Mark and Yosh, nah, Yukiko absolutely torches the boss in seconds. Marie is saved and we manage to escape the Hollow Forest together. The days go by, and it's soon time for us to return home. But there's actually some unanswered questions to solve. Where did the Midnight Channel rumor come from? And how did Narukami get his power? After some searching, we're led to the gas station attendant from the start of the game, who's actually Izanami, the true culprit behind the Midnight Channel. We chase after them into the final dungeon, Yomotsu Hirosaka. With how strong our teams are at this point in the game, we're able to run through the entire dungeon in under 15 minutes, easily taking down both mini-bosses. But I do need to grind a bit for the final boss, since they resist physical. Izanami is pretty powerful. Yoshi's plan involves debuffing Mitsuiki and Dekarabia, using Chie for items, Kanji for buffs, and Yukiko for the damage. Mark's plan involves using Teddy to buff, debuff, and heal, while the rest of the party uses charged up skills. As for myself, I had Yosuke heal, Narukami buff and debuff, and had Chie and Kanji attack with power charged moves. Eventually, it's time for Izanami's second phase, where they're far more menacing. She can now attack twice in one turn and constantly needs to be debuffed with my own defense up in order for us to have a chance to win. It takes a very long time and some luck since she loves to try inflicting the party with ailments, but she starts to defeat my party members one by one until it's only Narukami. We harness the power of the world, summon Izanagi no Okami, and Izanami is defeated for good. The god vows to leave humanity be and disappears. The group celebrates, and as the next day arrives, we board the train and the run is complete. Thank you all so much for watching. It was really fun giving a group challenge run a try, and I can't thank Mark and Yoshi enough for helping me out. Their socials are linked in the description. I gotta be honest, I never want to use that team ever again. And if you're curious, here are the final times for all of us. Although I know what challenge run I'm working on next, I want to try something new. There's nothing I want to do more than express just how much I love this series, and I think character analysis is a step in the right direction. I'll keep you all updated, so be sure to subscribe, thumbs up, and have a great day.